Hello, everybody. I'm your host, Eric Bird, here at StopStrugglingNow.com. And today, we're talking about part 2 of the 125,000 Airbnb units inside Dominican Republic presently. And we have to talk about it as investors. We're going to get down to the numbers in part 2. There will be no part 3. Let me know what you think down below with this assessment. And welcome. Stop Struggling Now gear. Check. And please like, subscribe, and click the bell below so you get the latest updates. Now, let's get to it. All right, welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much for being here. Please share the videos. This way, other people will not be blindsided by making investments that they may not be aware of or know the numbers. Whenever you invest, no matter what it is, you need to know as much information as possible so you do not find out things later that's going to be detrimental to your investment. Let's get down, shall we, to the Stop Struggling Now YouTube podcast channel page. Make sure, once again, hit that like, hit that follow, hit that heart, hit that thumb, wherever you're at. Please show some love. Thank you so much, and please check out the previous videos. Now, let's get into it, because part 1, we started off with the 125,000 Airbnb rooms available for rent in the Dominican Republic. Why does that matter? Well, it matters greatly. Some would say, why, Eric, does it matter greatly? Well, here's one of the numbers that I think you should pay attention to. Right here, the tourists stayed for an average of 8 nights. That is for 2024. I don't expect anything to be much different in 2025. The numbers are nearly almost identical. Occupancy, 72.2% of the hotel rooms available nationwide, and sometimes during the month, depending on which month it is, 35 up to 35.1% of short-term stays. Now, the problem with this is that the short-term booking platforms, Airbnb, VRBO, Booking.com is now going to be considered short-term, and those used to be hotel onlys, not Airbnb, but Booking.com, Expedia, Priceline used to be hotels only. Now that there's a little crossover, you can see short-term stays, and there's a reason it says up to 35%. We're going to go over the numbers today, so we'll get down with that, all right? But first, I want to start off with this. May 20th, 2025, Alex Rodriguez and David Collado announced U.S. $1 billion investment in luxury tourism. Okay, let's get real with this. Luxury tourism is only for a few. Those people willing to spend extra money to stay in places like Casa de Campo, right? Piantini, okay? Cap Cana, built for luxury, you pay more. What do any of those locations have to do with the rest of the island? If you're an investor, right? If you're an investor, what does any of that have to do where the top 10% to the top 1% pay a lot to live there, and when you go on vacation, it costs generally more? Fine. But the bulk of people traveling do not stay in these locations. So let's get back to it, shall we? Now, I just want to point this out, and this is May 20, 2025. How long do you think it's going to take them to build this area? A 1 billion project, and they're going to have 577 condos and villas, and you know they're going to have a hotel. That's part of the 5-star experience. So they're creating an area that basically top 10% of the wealthy people who want to spend all this extra money will stay. That has nothing to do with the other 99% of all properties, hotel units, and Airbnb short-term rentals available. All right, keep that in mind. And I want to show you something else. These announcements are just announcements. It doesn't mean anything as far as an investor should be concerned. Just because you can say, oh, Vin Diesel's going to build a studio, just so you can say A-Rod's going to do something in DR. Look at here. Look at this handshake right here in all smiles. This was May 12th, 2021. Vin Diesel have his One Race, I think it's One Race Films in Bergenton. There's something built already after 4 years. It's been 4 years and 3 weeks. And again, it's studios where people who basically are going to be here for a short term, part-time, to shoot their movies, TV shows, and then they're gone. Again, we're talking about 400, 500, 600 people that potentially would live on the island or buy something on the island, which again is real estate. This does not help with jobs as far as in the communities where people 40 miles away, 50 miles away are going to be getting a pay raise. You understand? All right. So again, all this talk is nice, but nothing has been done after 4 years. And the same thing's going to happen with A-Rod's project. It's going to be 4, 5, 6 years, 2030 before anything happens, if anything happens at all. It's a good talk to get people to come invest, but we don't care about talk. Talk is cheap, ladies and gentlemen. All right. Now, let's get down to this business at hand. Last year, in La Altagracia, Punta Cana area, all right? You see it here on the map, eastern part of the island. It includes Baibe, Hige, Macau, Michis, all right, all these hot spots. Last year, there was roughly 5,600 active listings, according to AirBTICS, all right? AIRBTICS, right? This year, it's up to 6,600 and counting, because we know there's deliveries that's happening as we speak. People who live in the Primaveros have delivery. People who live at, who are bought into Jardines, Christopher, all these Vista Cana deliveries. So there's going to be, by the end of this year, over 7,000 plus units that's going to be up for short-term rentals in La Altagracia area, which is the province or county, as we would say in the United States, that has all of these units. And if you don't have an increase in tourism exponentially. So let me give you a perfect example. We had 5,600 last year. You added 1,000 units into the mix over the previous year. Are we getting 1,000 more people that would rent? And if the answer is no, then we're going to have a glut of unit availability, which means prices have to come down. I hope you guys were paying attention over the last few years when I used to always say, and I still say, 0.1% of the purchase price is what you want to be able to rent it for. That is the deal. All right, let's keep moving, shall we? So you guys have the basis for where we're going with all of this. Now, let me go show you something else about these numbers here. 35.1% up 2 on short-term stays. Notice occupying 72.2% of hotel rooms. Look at this. There's 90,000 hotel rooms as of December 2024. in the Dominican Republic. You know there's some new hotels that came out this year already, but we'll stay with the 90,000 because we're going to start doing calculations because there is no way around it. Now, here's where the numbers get kind of dicey for 2025. Remember, I said we need 9,500,000 to 10 million tourists this year. We are not on track for that. We are only on track to repeat nearly 8.5 to 8.9 million total tourists by air in 2025. The numbers are not looking like there's a marked improvement. It's not like we're going to go into that extra 1 million people this year. That means stagnant travel. But we all know why. When you have the United States and 80% of their citizens living paycheck to paycheck, that's less people that's going to travel. When you have airfares, that prices that are going up to the island, round trip, all of a sudden now that's a problem. And then when you have all inclusives where a lot of people stay, their prices are already 700, 800 and up to 1,000, depending on the time of year. That starts being a problem. So some would say, well, Eric, what about more people going to Airbnb properties, right? Because if somebody has to spend $500-600 per night, why wouldn't they just go stay at a Airbnb? Well, Airbnb, we have a situation with that as well because there's only so many places that people will want to stay the majority of the time. That's why they stay at all inclusives. So let's get back to the numbers because once again, if you understand how this works, now keep this in mind. The first 4 months of this year in 2025, there is only 3,069,766 passengers by air. We don't care about cruise passengers. They're not staying. All right. We care about airfare participants who land, stay there on average 8 nights. That's what we care about. Now, here's the breakdown that people should start worrying about. Here it is so far for January 1st through April 30th. As I mentioned in the first video, look at this. Non-residents, Santo Domingo's down 11%. Puerto Plata down 7%. Punta Cana up 6.2%. But 6.2%, that's barely anything. You go from 1.9 million from 1.8. That's like 100,000 more. Divide that by 4, that's 25,000 more people. We're going to get into that as well shortly. La Romana, plus 42%, but their plus 42% is from 32,000, 33,000 people in 2024 up to 47,000. That's only like 14, 15,000 people. That's not going to do anything over the course of a month. You're talking about a few thousand people, 3, 4, 4,300, something around that number per week during the course of a month. But we'll get into that number shortly because in the first 3 months, guess what? There's not just 12 weeks. In the first 4 months, there's not 12 weeks. There's 17 weeks that have went by. 17 weeks and 3 days to be exact. So when you start dividing these numbers, which we'll get into shortly, now you understand where I'm going with this. Here's the other thing. Here's the real numbers for the country where people are coming from. The United States down 5% year over year. We're less so far the first 4 months by 5%. But you've increased Airbnb availabilities at least by 15 to 20%. That means there's 15 to 20% more on the market for short-term rentals. And you've added hotel units as well. We'll get into that shortly because I'm going to show you this number. Canada is down 4.4. The top 2 countries, 60% of all tourists. It ranges 60, around 58 to 64%, 65% of all tourists by air come from USA and Canada. Okay? If you're down these numbers, this is significant. Because where are you going to make up the rest? You're not. Because the rest, Argentina is next with 163,000. That's it. USA and Canada is 1.6, 1.7 million. So who cares? Argentina's 163, but Colombia is now at 95,000. In order for every other country to get to the 1.6 number, you would have to go down. Colombia is 95, France is 68,000, UK is 55, Chile's 51, Germany's 48,000. We're talking about like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. You're talking about like the next 15 countries still don't equal 1.9 or 1.7, 1.6 tourists. So you can understand this is a lot of tourists that's not coming, and now you're missing out on, you know what? You know what you're missing out on? Investors for business, investors for real estate. Here you go. Here's the real numbers that people always lie about hotel occupancy. January, 83.3% for 2025. February, 86.8% in 2025. They're even, all right? January and February is even. March, 81.6%, down 2.2%. April, 76.2%. That's down 3.6%. So hotel occupancy is down 1.2%. This is not good. Short-term rentals are all based on occupancy rates of hotels. So that is my assessment from the time I've been doing short-term rentals for the last 25 years, 30 years, 35 years. If you're in a location where hotel rooms are not booked, then short-term rentals won't be booked as much either, because now there's available space. Either way, hotels start reducing their rates, which now means the short-term rentals have to start reducing their rates. You cannot generally increase your rates if hotels cost $100 per night. Why would somebody for a studio unit spend more than $100 per night for a hotel for a condo that has a pool? This is why you need to buy properties that have amenities. Remember, amenities, amenities, amenities. Because with amenities, you get to overcome where somebody would say, well, I can stay at AC Hotel downtown Punta Cana for $135 per night right now. And they have a pool, and they have a fitness center, and I get free breakfast every morning. So why am I going to stay at your place for $100 when I have free breakfast every morning and I have everything else? That free breakfast for two people, that's the equivalent. And you figure I'm downtown where I feel a little bit better because there's a shopping mall maybe. There's Coco Bongo. There's other activities downtown. So people might say, yeah, I'll just stay at AC Hotel. San Juan Shopping Center's here. Restaurants are here. Okay. This is what you're going to have to deal with, ladies and gentlemen, if and when the market settles down, which is going to be now. It's already started. There's no way around it. You want to invest? You want to play with the big boys? Hey, you got to know the numbers and you got to stay on top of it because you have to adjust what you're planning on doing. There's just no way around it. All right, let's get down to the numbers, shall we? Here's 3,069,766. That's how many by air for 2025, January 1st through April 30th. Now, I'm going to do a couple of things with this number. So here, let me do it this way. First things first, we're going to divide this by 17 weeks, all right? Because that's what's happened. There's been 7 days or 7 nights and 3 days this month, or for January through April 30th. All right? So we're going to divide it by 17. Now you can see that's 180,574 and 4.47. So we'll call it 180,574 people that came by air. Now, here's where the problem comes in. People would start going, oh, this is great, Eric. Hold on, not so fast. Remember something. how many people come by themselves? And how many people come with 3 or more? So to be fair, I don't know that number. If somebody can find that number out, that would be greatly appreciated, but we don't know. So I'm going to do 2. I'll do 2 people. Why? Because I feel very confident about the median, the average. Average and median, there's 2 different things. So I'll say average. What I mean by that is I know for a fact there's people that come with 3, 4 people. Some people come with 5 or 6. So that number is probably more than 2, but I'm going to use 2 just to be safe because that's where we want to go. We don't want to say everybody came by themselves and say that's 180,000 people per week, right? We don't want to do that. That would be crazy. So that's why we're going to divide this by 2. So now you start getting into what I call real numbers. Because if you, let's go first things first. If I said 180,000 per week, right? We know there's 125,000 Airbnbs. And there's probably more than that coming online as we speak. We know there's 90,000 plus hotel rooms. 125 and 90 is already 215. That means 40,000 units, right? I believe that's right. Sorry, not right. Yeah, it is 40. Yeah, 215 minus 8, 30,000. About 35,000. 35,000 to 40,000, okay. Airbnbs could not be rented every month. Even if all the hotel units were booked 100%, and even if that leftover everybody else had to stay in Airbnbs with only one person in every room, that's ridiculous to think that way. But I'm just going to use that number so you guys would understand how crazy it is. 35 to 40,000 units would still be available if we just use one single person. So now you start to understand the situation because I'm going to divide this by 2 because I think it's more along these lines. 90,000 people, 90,287 people on average every week. You have 90,000 hotel rooms, which gets roughly 82-ish, 83% occupancy. So if we go by this standard, which let me see if I can keep this number. If we go by this standard and I say, okay, let's go with times 83%. That's 74,000. That leaves 20,000 units, ladies and gentlemen. Right? Because here's the number. It's less than 20, actually. 90,000. Right? Minus 74,000. Hold on. Let's get this back. Here, we'll do it again. So here it is, and I'll just use 74.5 or something, 74, because I don't remember the number. Come on. Let's see here. There you go. Oops. Okay, they don't like that. Let's go. 90,000. Yikes. Minus 74.5. I don't remember the number. You guys can actually go look it up. That's 15.5. All right? Do you guys understand if this is fully booked out to 83%, this is how many units in theory would be left available. I'm using mathematical equations because math doesn't lie. So if we have 15,000 left over, if there's 83%, and now that leaves 17% of the rest would be going to Airbnbs. So something's not jiving with the numbers, right? It's the way I look at it. Something's missing. There's something going on. But what I want you guys to understand is hopefully you start thinking of why you're investing and what you're doing. And this is why I use the 0.1% first of all. Second of all, I use the amenities clause, because you need to beat your competition. If you can get beach view, ocean view, if you can get lake view, if you can get these amenities that people can't get somewhere else or in a few locations, generally more amenities in an upscale luxury type of environment means you can charge more because people come, they stay, they say, you know what, we don't even have to leave. Just like an all-inclusive, because people, has anybody asked the question, why does somebody stay in an all-inclusive at $500, $600, $700, $800 per night instead of an Airbnb? The answer is simple. The amenities. They don't have to go shopping for food. They don't have to fix food. There's shows. There's sports. There's pools. There's oftentimes a beach. Restaurants. All I can eat. So this is why people will pay more to go to all-inclusives. It's not going to flip. It's not going to flip to where it's 83% of people going to Airbnbs and up to 35% are going to stay in hotels. That's not how it works. A lot of people don't feel comfortable without having security or feeling like they're safe. A lot of people don't feel safe because in their brain they go, well, there's guards, there's gates, I feel secure, I'll pay the extra money. Even though I've never had any problems in Dominican Republic. I'm sure there's problems somewhere. Let's get real. But the fact of the matter is, you as an investor have to think about what the numbers truly are. You can't listen to any developer, real estate agent. You can't listen to none of these people because they used to say things like 93% of hotel rooms are booked during the year. When in fact, that is not. 93% is a different number than 83% when you're talking about millions of visitors. It's very simple. So now that you know real numbers is at your disposal. If you have AirDNA, go get it. I just used that freebie at AirBTix because that shows me, at least in the La Altagracia area, that there was 5,600 units. Now there's 6,600 units on short term. That's 1,000 more units that's available every week. But we're not getting 1,000 more visitors every week, which in fact we need 2,000 more visitors. And in fact, we need 5,000 more visitors because 80% of those people are going to stay at a hotel. That's what the numbers say. So we need 5,000 more people per week landing at the Punta Cana airport if you invested in Punta Cana. If we're talking about the overall number for the whole island, now all of a sudden you start seeing the problem. It's not 5,000 more per week. It's going to be more like 120,000 more per week because you don't know where somebody's going to stay. 60% is going to come to Punta Cana, 40% is going to go elsewhere. La Americas, during high season, generally will stay somewhere between 15 to 20%. Puerto Plata, somewhere around 10 to 7% or lower. So those areas siphon off just a few people, but the point is you would still need more than 100 and some thousand people additional every week. We're not getting that this year. And now we're having more Airbnbs on delivery. So by the end of this year, there's going to be in Punta Cana, there's going to be over 7,000 short-term rentals available just in Punta Cana. On the island, I would estimate that there's probably going to be another 4,000 or 5,000. So we'll be pretty close to 130,000 Airbnbs that's going to be up for rent. And a lot of people are going to have a problem if this continues with this tourism. And again, if you're going to be a country and you decide that after 6, 7, 8 years that you're not going to invest in your infrastructure and you're going to continue to give the rich people or the developers or whatever you deem as your bread and butter industries, tax breaks, tax cuts, you're going to be in for one hell of a long, slow ride downhill. And this is what has happened so far over the last 5, 6, 7 years in the Dominican Republic. They're just like, oh yeah, we know we need to do something. And then they say, well, we'll put on some things such as showing A-Rod's going to do something. We'll put something else up in about another 4 months saying somebody's going to invest over here. But again, missing the whole point. All of this happening is no good if the roads aren't built, the infrastructure's not built. And so let me know what you guys think down below. I know we have 50, 60, 70 people that invested in the Dominican Republic. I know there's other people who's not part of the SSN Nation that will see this video. So there's going to be hundreds, if not thousands of other people that understand the situation that's going on in the Dominican Republic. There's several things going on, and you need to understand. This is why you can't go out of pocket. Out of pocket, what was it before? Remember 5 years ago when we were saying you buy anything from 0 to 250,000? Now you can't. Because those properties that were 0 to 250,000, they went up 50%, 60%, 70%. So you cannot buy that same $250,000 property for 400 grand. You're not renting anything for $400 per night. That's a condo. Let's get real. Not going to happen unless you're in an upscale luxury location. And even then, that's sketchy because you could stay at an all-inclusive for that. So here's where the problems start arising. If you don't have the 9.5 this year, which it looks like you're not going to get that, and you're not going to have 10.5 the following year in 2026, where even another 5 to 10,000 properties are going to come online for short-term rentals, you can see where disaster strikes for those people who think, oh, I'll just buy me a 2-bedroom penthouse unit for 300 grand, and it's not even in an upscale location. And then you're going to sit there and say, well, I can't even get $100 per night. Occupancy rates are around 40 to 50%. Now all of a sudden you're sitting there like, well, wait a minute, I can only make 18,000 per year. I got to give up all these expenses, HOAs, whatever. I'm really making 10, but I invested 300. 100 divided by 300 is going to be 3%, ladies and gentlemen. If you want 3%, you can easily just buy treasuries at 4.4 right now from the United States government. If you're going to sit around single digits, and no hype gets you away from actual economic numbers. And with all that said, thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. And please like, subscribe, and click the bell below so you get the latest updates. And I know it's hard out here, but the truth matters. The numbers matter. You can't hide. You can't run. But all of you who made their investments at 150 and under, you're still going to be fine later. But the problem is your place won't be built for another 2-3 years. And is that really a problem? Not really. You want to extend this out. But we need the government to actually do their job. Banking upgrades, infrastructure upgrades such as banking for number 1, number 2, mortgages, number 3, court systems, number 4, the individuals in DR doing business. Those 4 things are on the top of my list that needs to be improved by 100%. Otherwise, this is going to fizzle. Remember Bahamas at one time? Everybody was there. Remember Jamaica? Everybody was there. In the Caribbean, you don't have too many hot spots that stay hot forever because of things like what DR is doing right now, not doing their infrastructure properly. Water, sewer, electricity, Wi-Fi, number 1. Let's get real. I love you guys very much. Thank you for your support over all these years, but make sure you stay safe out here because the world is a ghetto and it's getting very, very bad. So keep you and your family safe if you can. Stay even-keeled. People are under stress, under duress. So with all that said, keep your head up. Keep moving. And I'm out.